It was 1 year ago this night that I stood before this signboard, and during the middle of a coronavirus pandemic and with a big hurricane, Laura, bearing down on us as Lake Charles, Louisiana, I asked the question, in the middle of all the difficulty headed our way, how are we going to be strong? What makes America strong? And I answered it with these three phrases: that America is strong because we trust our God, we help our neighbors, and we love our country. And after we saw Hurricane Laura land with our 150-mile-per-hour winds and rip buildings apart and tear trees out of the ground and wreak havoc and destruction left and right, far and wide, both in Lake Charles and in hundreds of miles around our area, what did we see? We saw neighbors coming out and loving God, trusting God, praying together, realizing that our essence comes because we were made in His image, and we need to remember that when things are great and when they're difficult. We prayed together in the streets, we prayed together in the food lines as we had community cook stations because no one had a kitchen anyway. And we met together like places like here in our backyard. We met at outdoor worship 3 or 4 Sundays in a row after the storm because there was no power, no air conditioning. We trust our God. We help our neighbors. Well, I tell you, we saw that in spades here. I'm right across the street from a big Baptist church, Trinity, and thousands of neighbors from all around the country came and lived in that parking lot and brought truckloads of materials and supplies. We had chainsaw crews and muck out crews and people bringing food and supplies. And then over time, we had people delivering additional help of resources. At our church, we've had Samaritan's Purse there, both with the disaster response crew and now with a long-term crew to rebuild 50 houses, and World Changers. We had all these other churches and other groups, United Way, all these people loving our neighbors, helping our neighbors all around. And why would neighbors do such things? Give money and time and support to give people help that they don't even know. They don't know these people. We had people come here but never met them. I've met hundreds of people in our restaurant who came and ate because they were in town helping. Why would they do that? Well, because they love our country. They love our countrymen more particularly, because we're a nation built on trusting in God. It's our national motto, by the way, in God we trust. And that identification from God shapes us as a people who are not in all ways, but geared to loving others and giving and helping, using what resources you have for the benefit of those who you care about. And that caring spreads all around, across the street to our neighbor and across the country. But we didn't just have only one problem here in Southwest Louisiana. We had Hurricane Laura on August 27th, and I think a few weeks later, 5 weeks later, we had Hurricane Delta show up and brought all kind of havoc because there's now trash in the ditches and debris, and Hurricane Delta's waters of rain flooded homes. Oh my gosh, homes that had already been messed up by Laura now got flooded. And then a few months later, we had a freeze that froze homes all across the South, particularly in Texas and here in Louisiana. We had freezing homes, abandoned homes that didn't have anyone living there because they were evacuated from the storm and they're unlivable. Now we have frozen pipes busting and getting flood waters in new homes that didn't even have damage before because now this storm happened, this hurricane or flood winter storm. Then a few months later, we had in May 20 inches of rain in 5 hours, and still debris in the ditches and water not draining as it should, and hundreds of homes flooded. Some homes had water in them from Rita or from Hurricane Laura, and then water from Delta, and then maybe water from Uri, and then water from the rains in May. People had their homes that were rebuilt, right? They back in almost buttoned up after Laura, and then one of those other things, either the freeze or the flood in May, brought water again. Oh my goodness, the discouragement. And so today, here at the 1 year anniversary of Hurricane Laura, we had churches around the country, around the city. We've got Southwest Louisiana Responds, a coalition, I believe, of 43 churches, and coalition even broader than that has done a ton of work helping 500 homes, I believe. Super efficient use of resources, right? All the manpower comes in as volunteers, and the setup is already there, the organization is there, so then just the cost of the roofing materials and roof gets put on, for example. Now we're in the sheetrock stage. Oh, it's so great, but the need is still here, and I can't believe the SWLA Responds now has launched today, on this day, Hurricane Laura Anniversary Day, reclaimtheday.org, because we don't want to just think about the hard days. We want to remember that there are good days coming. But even in light of that kind of encouragement and hope, there are new problems, because there's another storm. I think it's Hurricane Ida, if I'm remembering right, that just crossed over Jamaica and is now forming itself as a very strong hurricane, and it's eyeballing South Louisiana. It looks like now that Morgan City and Baton Rouge are going to get the hammers thrown from what could be a major storm, right? Now I think it's a Hurricane 1, but it projected to be maybe a 4 before it lands. And people in Southwest Louisiana have been very overwhelmed by the idea that we would have another hurricane. We had a Hurricane Audrey in the 50s, and we had Hurricane Rita in 2005. Again, my whole lifetime until 2005, no hurricanes here, none of substance. We had some small ones, certainly some floods happened if you're in low-lying areas, but no big wind events. And then we had this one last year, Laura, and now we've got the scare. Oh my gosh, what if it happens again? And we've had to give each other a wide berth of latitude for emotional responses, because it's just been very challenging. I was even kind of a little shorter than I should have been with one of my own teammates today, who was just very anxious about the idea of another storm. And so we got to give each other a lot of slack, a lot of rhythm, a lot of wide berth of latitude for emotional responses for that, because there's no other storms coming. But what if another storm hits us here? What are we going to do? And I guess my response to you today is the same. If we knock us down and we get right back up. And why? Because we're Louisiana Strong. And Louisiana Strong, just our local expression of those same 3 characteristics that make America strong. Because we get knocked down. I'm knocked down. wore my hands out working, hurt him. I had to get a joint fixed from the doctor down the street. Great job. But here I am, a one-handed helper in the middle of hurricane coming. Am I all that useful as a worker? Not as much as I would be, but what are we going to do if we get knocked down? We're going to get right back up. That's what. Now, there are some people from these 4, I can't believe it, 4 natural disasters who are here that are just going to struggle to get back up as easily, right? If you're a widow or someone who's got a handicapped person in your home, or you're uninsured, maybe had uninsured loss, or you never thought about flooding and then you get flooded, and that can be super hard. And we certainly need outside resources in those instances. If somebody has an uninsured loss, or unexpected, or their contractor didn't do them right and now they're out of money and maybe older or disabled, those are big problems. They need outside resources. What kind of outside resources? Well, the kind that come from a strong place where people care for each other and love their country. That's what. Could be neighbors helping neighbors. So maybe you're going to donate to Southwest Louisiana Responds as a result of thinking about how strong we need to be as a people, and the needs that can be there from someone in one of those situations I just mentioned, a widow or disabled, or oh my gosh. And the discouragement is so real. I'm not saying just get your bootstraps and pull them up. Maybe the neighboring means giving someone a pair of boots so they can grab those straps and pull it up. Right on. Go to SWLA Responds and do just that. Or United Way, or Samaritan's Purse, or pick a thing, man. There's plenty of them. But if this darn hurricane comes and knocks us down, what are we going to do? Well, if it comes to Morgan City and knocks us down, well, some of us in Lake Charles are going to set aside our work. And again, my work's not done. I haven't fixed any of the buildings that belong to us or our business all the way. Even the restaurant here, it's the least damaged. It still has a few things. I have one building that got completely destroyed from Laura, and I haven't even started to rebuild it. I bought the land and that's it. It's waiting on me to have enough time and energy to get to it. There's another building with a big hole in the wall. I have a temporary patch, and it's certainly not ready to withstand big winds. So if Ida comes here, I'm in trouble. That building's going to have a lot of damage, uninsurable damage, because I couldn't get a regular policy because I have a hole in the wall, right? A wooden patch on a brick building. But what are we going to do if we get knocked down? We're going to get right back up. That's what we're going to do, because we are a strong people, a people built on the identity that comes from the character of God, that we made in God's image, people, human beings made in God's image, get imprinted in, where we care for one another. Why? Because that's a reflection of God's character. And then we help one another. Why? Because we care for each other and we want to support each other. It's a part of the human redemption story of caring for one another. When we're redeemed, we want to love on people and support people. And that leads us to having a coalition of people. We call that a country that we love and identify with and care for. And that's how we get strong. That's how we stay strong. That's how we bounce back in the middle of trouble. Like, God help us if another hurricane comes to Lake Charles in southwest Louisiana. Knock us down. We get right back up. And if your neighbor's a little slow to get up or having trouble, we're going to reach out our hand. Even if it's my, surgery wounded hand, right? We're going to reach it out with whatever you have. You're not responsible for what you don't have, but for what you do have. What do you do with what you do have? That's what we're responsible for. And we're going to take our opportunity to reflect on how great God is, how much we care for our neighbors, and how much we love our country, to bounce back, get back up. America strong. Do I want Ida to come here? God, no. I wanted to get kneecapped in the Gulf. Maybe God will blow a upper level wind and cut the top off that storm. But if she hands on Morgan City or somewhere else, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go help them, because we're America strong. We trust our God. We help our neighbors. We love our country. And that's what makes America strong.